This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and I'm really pleased to have live in the studio with me Harvey Wasserman. Harvey Wasserman is a journalist, activist, author. His latest and forthcoming new book is Strip and Flip's Selection of 2016, 5 Jim Crows and Electronic Election Theft. You can find out all about it at solartopia.org. And you can tweet Harvey at Solartopia, Solartopia. Hey, Harvey, welcome.
Hey,
welcome
good to see you, Tom.
Great to have you with us. So the strip and selection of the strip and flip selection of 2016. What are strip and slip?
Okay, so it's a little tongue-tying. Stripping is getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of African-American, Hispanic, young, suspected Democrats off the voter rolls, which is going on all over the country. Greg Palast has done a lot of reporting on it. You've had him on there, and that's how they won the election of 2000 and 2004. That's why we wound up with George W. Bush in the White House. Then if that doesn't take them far enough, the flipping is the flipping of the electronic vote count late at night on election night, which they did in Ohio in 2004. So we have about 80%, or maybe a little less, of our votes counted this year or cast this year on electronic voting machines. And in key states like Ohio, Arizona, Iowa, Michigan, you have Republican secretaries of state along with Republican governors. You know, all this rigmarole, all this campaigning, all this hype on the TV, it can all change in about 10 seconds on election night if the computer hackers hired by the corporations, supervised by the governors, get in there and just flip the vote count.
Yeah, there was word that in the either 2008 or 2012, I think it was the 2012 election, that Anonymous came out and said that they knew that Karl Rove was planning on stealing the vote and he was hysterical on Fox News. That was the 2012 election.
Well, what happened was my co-author on this book, Bob Fitrakis, who's an attorney and a political scientist, discovered that they were putting patches on the machines in Ohio. Right. And unsupervised, no accountability whatsoever. They were just changing the machines, and he filed a lawsuit that morning and stopped them from doing that. And then, and Rove, I guess, hadn't gotten the message. And that night on Fox News, he assumed that the Ohio vote was just going to flip, as it did in 2004, when he was in charge with George W. Bush. Right. And but it didn't happen. Now, as it turns out, they could have lost Ohio that year anyway, and the Democrats could have lost Ohio that year anyway, and Obama would have still won. But that kind of thing is.
Well, and Ohio probably wasn't the only state they were doing this.
Oh no, that's exactly right. Yeah. And
so let's start out with strip. To what extent? I had a caller earlier who said, the percentage of the white vote that Ronald Reagan carried was exceeded, or at least the numbers, and I think a percentage, by John McCain and by Mitt Romney. But the problem is that the white vote is declining in the United States. California is now a majority-minority state, that kind of thing. So really, if the Republicans want to win an election, particularly a Republican like Donald Trump, who is hated by women and minorities, they've got to make sure that all the votes of the angry white men are counted and nobody else's vote is counted.
That's right.
So
that's the Southern strategy.
It goes beyond. I mean, the Southern strategy really was just to shout out to the racists. I mean, this with the strip and flip, what we're talking about, or at least the strip part of this, is we're talking about Chris Kobach. We're talking about what Katherine Harris and Jeb Bush did down in Florida in 2000, where they knocked, 80,000 African-Americans off the voting rolls? 90,000 African-Americans off the voting rolls 3 weeks before the election so that George W. Bush could get within 500 votes and have the Supreme Court steal the election for him. So to what extent is this actually happening? How many votes have been stripped that we know of in Colorado or Arizona or Michigan? Or where do we know about stripping? And is this just, 10, 20,000 votes here or there? Or is it millions?
Oh, no, it's millions. It's millions. It's mind-boggling how many are being done. We know that from Greg's reporting that it's in more than 20 states. We know in Ohio they've already stripped over 1 million votes from the voter rolls in a state where about 5.5 million have voted. They're all talking about the low voter turnout in 2014. It's because they stripped people off the voting rolls.
That's why, I had somebody call in earlier and said, hey, in New York, the Republican exit polls showed that, were pretty much corresponded with the Republican outcome. But on the Democratic side, the exit polls said that Bernie won by 12%, but he actually only won by about 6%. What happened to that other 6%? And I said, I'm guessing that those were students or, young people, first-time voters, whatever, who had been stripped off the rolls.
That's right. And a lot of the stripping was done by Republicans.
They thought they were voting.
Right. And there's a big controversy.
So it was done by Republicans in preparation for the general.
Yes. And there's also...
this was a rehearsal.
Yes, there's a theory that the Republicans would rather run against Hillary than Bernie. We're not saying much at this point about who's doing the stripping and flipping in the primaries, but we know for sure it's going to happen in the fall. And we know for sure that that's why we wound up with George W. Bush twice, 2000, 2004. The one good thing we can say about George W. Bush, he was never elected president of the United States. Right. And it's going to happen again. I mean, we know that 3 Senate seats were stolen in 2014. In North Carolina, Alaska, and Colorado, all this 53, 54 Republicans in the Senate, it's illegitimate. How do we call this country a democracy when in 10 seconds on election night, the whole rigmarole of our campaigns can be flipped electronically?
A couple of days before the last election in Colorado, Cory Gardner is the guy, right?
I don't remember the name, actually.
I'm pretty sure that's his name. Who had been one of these, hyper-abortion, anti-abortion guys. And Mara Liasson was trying to rehabilitate him on National Public Radio. It was making me crazy. I was complaining about it on the radio. But, he won, even though the polls showed that he wasn't going to win. No, Was that because...
Absolutely.
Because of stripping or flipping or both?
Both. Because, you go in there, they take as many African Americans off the rolls. It's not hard to figure out who it is. They get rid of the Hispanics. They get rid of all the young people. In Texas, you can show up to vote with a voter ID, with a gun license, but not a student ID. And so,
even from a state university.
Yeah, that's right. So, this has been going a couple hundred years. It states all the way back to the Constitution. The Constitution, their vote was stolen when they ratified it. So we have a tremendous history of this, which is in our book, The Strip and Flip. So this is a very clear strategy. And I mentioned the Southern strategy because Nixon knew that you couldn't just call out the white racists and carry the South, because a lot of those states have 40% black people. You can bring out all the white racists you want, but if you let the blacks vote, it's not going to work. So the drug war is what was used and is continuing to be used to strip people of color off the voter rolls. And that's how they've moved this country to the right. All this talk about, corporate money, other things like that, it has a big impact. But they have really taken the mechanics of our elections and completely raped it, is the only way you can term.
Or rigged it.
Rigged or raped, whatever you want to call it.
We have 1 minute left, Harvey. What should people do?
We have to have a movement to get hand-counted paper ballots. This is the most important thing. Universal automatic voter registration.
Bernie Sanders has been saying that on this program for 11 years.
Well, it's got to happen, and it hasn't happened. And the 2016 election is just up for grabs. The voting machines are 10 years old. The governors have no accountability. There's no real, except for the exit polls, which are under attack. There's no real way to monitor the system. We're at the mercy of hackers.
So is there a movement? Where do people go other than
freepress.org and solartopia.org? Our book is published by freepress.org and solartopia.org, and we have been campaigning in Ohio for 12 years now to get this changed. Finally, we've succeeded in getting people to think about this. It's been in the Times. It's in the media now. People understand.
So we need people in individual states where they've got citizen referendums to put these things on the ballot.
Yes, absolutely. And we have in this book a plan for monitoring our elections, for changing the voting system. It's got to happen, or it's all just a big game.
There you go.
It's meaningless.
Harvey Wasserman, the book The Strip and Flip Selection of 2016. And you can read all about it over at solartopia.org or freepress.org. And you can tweet him at Solartopia. Harvey, thank you. Hey.
Thank you, Tom. Always a pleasure.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
That's solartopia.org. Check it out. Harvey Wasserman.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.